as more and more top 25 rankings come out, who's in, who's out, who still has a chance, and more on today's show. Welcome back to the Chicago Sports Desk. I'm Alex Burstein. Sorry for missing last week's podcast. Had a lot to go, and by the time everything was set up, I decided to just do a better podcast this week than do not so good one last week. So today we're going to be going over how the college football playoff top 25 standings are looking, who's breaking in, who's breaking out, and who still has a chance. So our top 6 right now are Alabama at number 1, Clemson at number 2, Miami and Oklahoma rounding out the top 4, and then Wisconsin and Auburn rounding out the top 6. So these 6 teams are probably the 6 teams I'd have possibly making the playoffs. However, pretty much any of the top 10 teams could get lucky, get some good quality wins, and make it to the playoffs. With the exception of Notre Dame, I'm only saying this because Notre Dame is not in a conference, therefore excluding them from any high-quality conference championship game, therefore taking them out of the playoff picture almost completely. So the biggest gainer this week in the standings was Washington State. They jumped +5 from number 19 to number 14. The biggest loser was Washington, who dropped from 9 to 18. That is not good for them. The 3 teams that got in this week was Stanford, Big Ten team Michigan, and Boise State. And then the 3 teams that dropped out were Virginia Tech, Iowa, and Iowa State. Not a good week for either of the Iowa teams. The thing with these 2 teams is they got a few quality wins, but they didn't get a few they got a few quality wins, but then a few of the games they should have won, they were not able to hold on to, therefore leading to their downfall, and they are out of the top 25. So I'm going to go over the top 10 teams again and how they each could hypothetically make it to the playoff. So number 10, let me go over the standings quick, and then I'll go over how they make it. So going from 10 to 1, we have Penn State, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Georgia, Auburn, Wisconsin, Oklahoma, Miami, Clemson, and the undefeated Alabama. And on this list, just to round out records and stuff, Wisconsin, Miami, and Alabama are all perfect. Clemson, Oklahoma, and Georgia all are 1-loss teams. And then Penn State, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Auburn are all... Oh, my bad. Also, Clemson's a 1-loss team, but all those teams are 2-loss teams. So here's how they're all going to make it if they are. Penn State does not have a good chance. Here's how they do it. They win out the rest of the games. If they don't win out, they're definitely not making it. They win out, so that puts them on a 7 or 8. But then they need a convincing win over an undefeated Wisconsin at this point. Wisconsin has a really good chance to win out their season, so Wisconsin needs to get their wins for Penn State to have a chance. Penn State wins in the Big Ten championship, possibly gets a number 4 seed. Same thing goes for Ohio State, but since Ohio State's such a good team, they've seen them in the past do the same thing in the playoffs. The the selection committee has an idea of what this team can do. Therefore, I'm putting Ohio State over Penn State in a tiebreaker between those 2 teams if both 2 were in playoff talk. Notre Dame has pretty much gotten eliminated. I said that before, and I'll say it again. Here's why. This is going to come back to hurt them. They are not in a conference. They are with BYU and 2 other teams who do not have a conference. They just play random teams, which seemed to help them up to the point of the fact where now, since they've played all these good teams, they find themselves at 2 losses and a situation where there's a bunch of 0 and 1-loss teams, and they're not going to be able to play a perennial powerhouse in the conference championship game since they don't have one. Even saying so, a 2-loss team, Notre Dame would be put in a high division. They might not even be put in the conference championship game. That's why they're in 8, not 7 or 6, with the other 1 and 2 loss teams. Number 7, Georgia. Georgia had an embarrassing embarrassing loss this week to Auburn. Very bad loss. Worst loss ever by a number 1 college football playoff ranked team. So that is what brought them down 6 ranks, and I don't see them getting any better. They have a tough schedule. I mean, let me see. I don't think they have a super tough schedule, but win out is possible, but winning the ACC championship game, I believe, maybe not. Maybe it's SEC. Let me check my facts real quick. My bad. If they win out, they win their conference championship game, they might have a chance, but if they don't, they're pretty much out. Already a one-loss team. It's not the fact that they're a one-loss team, it's the fact that they are a one-loss team with a terrible loss to a team that was ranked way lower than them, 9 places lower than them, and since they were the number 1 seed, losing by 23 points for any team, especially a number 1 seed, is not good. They are facing Kentucky this week, and then they are facing Georgia Tech, and then they round out their season with a few other easy matches. It's really going to depend on how they look in the conference championship game, if there's some other teams that are fighting for that 4 or 3 seed. So next we go to number 6, Auburn. Probably the most impressive team on this week after this win over Georgia. Auburn, I'm just going to say here, they beat Alabama, they end, they lose, they're out. Number 5, Wisconsin. Wisconsin needs to win out, and that includes the conference championship game to make it. If they don't, they're out. If they do, they're in. Number 4, Oklahoma. Oklahoma's had an up-and-down season, but because of Baker Mayfield, they're always in it, and they have a Heisman quarterback, and they have the rest of their offense is just amazing. If they hadn't had this offense, they'd probably looking at 6-3 on the season. But they aren't, and they are in the top 4 now. Number 3, Miami. They're making it. I'm calling it. I say Wisconsin, Miami, Alabama, Oklahoma make it. Clemson drops out with another loss, but that's because 3 of those teams are undefeated. Any team undefeated at this point is really good, and you see that turnover chain keep on being used. Number 2, Clemson. Do I agree with this ranking? No, they had that one loss that they should not have lost. They should be undefeated. They should be number 1 right now. They aren't, so they should be number 5. Finally, we have number 1 ranked Alabama. Are they falling? No, they are not. Alabama's 10-0. How are they going to finish the season? They're going to finish the season perfect, heading into the playoff. Now we're going to see if they can blow it there again. So next we're going to finally finish it off with the Northwestern Wildcats, my team. They're number 23 in the nation. It's amazing. Basketball's number 20. Football's number 23. What could be better for Purple Cat fans right now? Decent play versus Purdue this weekend. Not the best result. They could have had some better plays. The defense got sloppy at the end, but they have another chance to prove themselves this week. I mean, they proved themselves last week. They have another chance to make their playoff resume better this week. Not playoff resume. What am I saying? They have a better chance to make their top 25 resume this week better as they face off Minnesota. Always a good game. There's been a few very close finishes in Minnesota these past few years against the Wildcats. That's all the time we have for today, folks. Make sure to email any suggestions, or if you want a guest on this show, at the Chicago Sports Desk at gmail.com. I'll make sure to have another podcast up next week, and then also check out my YouTube channel. I'm looking to, these podcasts are going to be posted on there, and then I'm also looking to start a weekly broadcast as well for some more general sports. Thanks for listening, and good night from Chicago. I'm Alex Burstein.